Hello and welcome. Assalamu alaikum. Uh, Welcome to this IPIP Fireside Chat number 6. The title of today Fireside Chat is Information Security in Modern Age. First of all, I would like to start with the introduction of this organization IPIP.
IPIP, Irish Pakistani ICT Professionals. An open access platform for present and future Irish Pakistani ICT professionals. Professional and social networking. Information and training seminars. Career guidance events. Upskilling sessions. Community get-togethers. Irish Pakistani ICT professionals. Join us, guide us, contribute and play your role in this community building project. IPIP, Irish Pakistani ICT professionals.
Right. So I would start with the agenda for this webinar, and before I go into the agenda, I would like to introduce our panelists who are the domain expert in the security field. So we will start with Mohammed Afaq, who will present the infrastructure security, and then it will be followed by Ikram, who will talk about the web app security, and then Raja will talk about penetration testing and vulnerability assessment, followed by Adnan, who will talk about the security awareness, password security, and we will also touch base on some of the topics around GDPR. So first of all, I would introduce our first panelist, Ikram. Ikram Niazi is the senior engineering lead and the team lead. He has overall 15 plus years of IT industry experience in various sectors related to complete apps development lifecycle in languages like Java, PHP, .NET, JavaScript, and Angular. He had worked in different positions in many organizations as a lead senior software engineer, team lead, dev manager, and project manager. Currently, he's working in eShop World on e-commerce platform. And next, I'd like to introduce another domain expert, whose name is Adnan Ahmed. He's head of ICT and CISO at Ornua. It is a dairy cooperative and headquartered in Dublin. It has annualized sales of over 2.3 billion euros. And they are Ireland's largest exporter of Irish dairy products, exporting to 110 countries worldwide. Adnan has more than 20 years of experience in the IT industry, ranging from application development, solutions architect, and design, building, and implementing security operations. Our next panelist is Mohammed Afaq Ahmed, Mohammed Afaq Khan. He is infrastructure support and the consultant at Garda Ombudsman. He's the director of Ingenuity IT Solutions Limited as well. Mohammed Afaq has over 17 years of experience managing and building LAN WAN infrastructure for the private and public sector in Ireland. Mohammed Afaq currently is providing ICT infrastructure consultancy services to Irish government agency called as Garda Ombudsman Commission. Our next panelist is Raja Tayyab. Our next panelist is Raja Tayyab Irfan. He is IT manager at ADP, which is Automated Data Processing. He has 15 plus years of experience in information security, identity management, implementation, and compliance with the GDPR, ISO 27001, and SOC 1 controls. He is a certified ethical hacker and certified information systems security professional, CISSP. So here is a brief introduction of our honorable and domain experts within the security field. So we are going to start with Mohammed Afaq, who is going to present our first topic today, which is the infrastructure security.
Thank you, Zishan Bhai. Afternoon, folks. As introduced, my name is Mohammed. Today, I will take you through just a brief overview of how corporate infrastructure security works. I will discuss its basic security fundamentals, what is encryption and how it works, perimeter security, and internal controls. So security fundamental, all the information security revolves around three things: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It is most commonly known as CIA triad. I will discuss this briefly in the next slide. I'll just take you through what I am going to do today over here. So encryption, what is encryption, how it works, and different types of encryption, and where to use it, and what are the benefits and pros and cons of encryption. With perimeter security, I will take you through the email security. I will do a few demos and how to troubleshoot your email movement, and how to protect your domain using the SPF, DKIM, and Dmarc. It's the techniques used to secure your email domain. I will go through briefly about the firewalls and the next generation firewalls, virtual private network, and internet access. And then the most importantly, the internal controls, how to control information flow inside your organization and how to secure it. So the first thing, every security principle, every fundamental of information security revolves around three things, which is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And confidentiality means that how to secure your data for unauthorized people or unauthorized access. This is how to secure with encryption. Encryption is the primary part of it. The best way to protect confidentiality is through encryption. And how to secure it with the control-based authentication and user access, and to ensure that it is not disclosed to people who do not need to know the information. It's strictly on need-to-know basis. That's what confidentiality involves. Integrity is data has many forms. It moves through the organization, and to ensure that the data has not been altered or changed when it's been moved across. And it is very important to keep the integrity of the data. Otherwise, it's useless. Availability is because based on confidentiality and integrity, we have to have certain measures so that it should be able to be accessible. We should have its availability so that we should not make it so so encrypted that it's difficult to read or difficult to access. And we have to control availability to right people with authorized access. We have to have a level of performance, and to ensure that it is backed up regularly, and in case of a local failure, it should be able to recover quickly. So the main core concept is the security principle is the CIA triad, and you can find more information in CISSP. So I'll take you through the next step, encryption. So basically, what is encryption? Encryption is which it manipulates your data in a certain way with a mathematical calculation that it turns it into encrypted form, and so that it's useless to any user without its key. Every encryption user has to have a key pair or a key to encrypt it. Based on that, when it's get to the receiver, it has to be decrypted so that it makes sense to them. So the benefit of it is it provides confidentiality. It means that it was not read, or not changed during the course of its transmission. It's authenticated because person who will be sending you the encrypted message will have to send you the key so that we know that it's from the right person. Integrity means it has not been changed because it's encryption is ciphertext is calculated on a mathematical formula. So it has to be its integrity is maintained. As if somebody tries to change it, the whole formula change and the file become corrupt. Non-repudiation means that it prevents senders from denying the sent encrypted message because it cannot be changed. So it is a proof that the message was sent from a certain person. It verifies authenticity. The only thing that it has the cons is there is an overhead. But with the advancement in technology, I think this is not significant than your data, your confidentiality of your data. And it is and in case if you lost your keys, because encryption works on the keys, if you lose your keys, it's impossible to recover the data. Encryption needs to be encrypted whether it's in transit or at rest. At rest means when it's sitting on your servers, it needs to be encrypted so that if somebody tries to break into your comms room and take your hard drives away, nothing can be seen on it as it's encrypted. In transit means if the data has been moving across your organization, it should be encrypted. So if somebody tries to man in the middle attack or something like that, it's still encrypted and nobody can change anything on it or get the information out of it. There are two types of encryptions: symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption. Symmetric encryption use single key for encryption. So when the sender is about to send the information, it makes a key and encrypt the whole document or whatever it's sending with that key, and then send the document over to the receiving person. The receiving person has to have the same key to decrypt it, otherwise it cannot be decrypted. So it's a single key, and these kind of attacks can happen. There are ways to portray these attacks, and people can get information out of it. The alternate is the asymmetric encryption, but sometimes though both encryption used together as well, and I'll go through it when we'll do the VPN. The most common type of encryption is AES, triple DES, blowfish. I haven't mentioned blowfish here, I should have. But AES 128 means it uses 128-bit for encryption key. And the most recent one is AES 256, which is a military-grade encryption. It's very difficult to break. Triple DES AES has larger overheads, whereas triple DES has less overhead. But I think triple DES has been compromised a couple of years ago, but it's still very, very strong. Asymmetric encryption is the most widely used at the moment, which is also known as public key encryption. Whereas every user generates two pair of keys. One is a private key, the other is public key. So when that key pair is generated, the private key is held onto the system, and public key is sent to the other user, where he can, when the message is sent encrypted using the private key, he can use the public key to decrypt it. This is a very, very secure way of getting the information across, as the key that it was encrypted with was never sent over to the receiver so that it can be decrypted, because it decrypts its own public key. The most common implementation is the transmission TLS security on the website, which is commonly used as HTTPS. It's a public key encryption. Diffie-Hellman is another technique to use the same public asymmetric encryption. It is widely used in VPN and VPN phase 1, and so is the RSA. The third type of encryption is hash functions. Hash function is to ensure the integrity of what you have downloaded, for example, from the internet, is that it is secure and it has not been altered while it was being downloaded. Normally you see on the website, especially on Microsoft websites, that if somebody accesses your system, if you download a file, it normally gives a SHA key or MD5 key as well, and then you can authenticate against that to make sure that the file was not altered in any way from the web server down to your machine. So hash function is primarily used for that. So this is just a brief overview of encryption. The next thing is in the parameter security is the email security. Email is the most important aspect of any organization. It is taken for granted. Email is taken for granted that it's work all the time. But to secure it, to secure your domain, it's very, very important to understand how you can secure your email, your domain name. and how can you secure the reputation of your organization as well. So the most important thing about the reason why I included in the perimeter security, because email sits at the very end of your organization. Any email comes in and out, it comes through the email server or the email gateway. The most important thing that you have to remember to securing your email is, first of all, is to disable relaying, so that any external user cannot use your email server to relay messages or spams. The other most important thing is to secure your domain reputation. For example, if you have a domain and somebody can spoof your email address and send email on behalf of you on your domain, that creates a bad repute, and most email gateways will start rejecting your emails. For that purpose, there is a technique called SPF, which is known for Sender Policy Framework, Domain Key Identification Management, and Dmarc. All these techniques are used in conjunction together to ensure that your domain reputation is not is safe. And then the other part I'll discuss is the email transmission security, which is TLS. Normally, when the email is sent between the two domains, this is now normally used to go in the clear text, but now we can implement email transmission layer security, where you can install public key infrastructure, which is a private and public key, so that your domain is safe and the email that goes between the two domains are secure, encrypted, so that nobody can sit in the middle and read your emails. I will go through with the demo. One of the thing that you can use is the mxtoolbox.com. It's a very good tool to identify if there is any problem or if your email is properly set up. I will open up a demo for you for how to. So mxtoolbox.com is where you can check if there is any problem with your domain name, or if your domain has what kind of reputation it holds. So if we go and check, for example, let's check rte.ie, and if you do mx lookup, it tells you what are the domains that are being used here. And see, the Dmarc record is published, Dmarc policy not enabled. So it tells you all the information about it. It can be for any, you can check it for your own domain as well. Over here, you can check whether you have an SPF record set up, or you have DKIM lookup or Dmarc lookup. So you can do SPF lookup as well. So it tells these are the valid domain email addresses that emails can come from. If any email that comes from any other domain, it will categorize it as a spam. So it saves your domain organization, so that if you have a domain name that you use to send email, that some scammers cannot use your email address to spoof your email address to send as a legit email. So every organization has to do that, which makes it very difficult for the spammers or spoofers to able to use your domain name. Similarly, if you go to Dmarc, again, you can do the Dmarc setup, and this will tell you what kind of Dmarc policy is applied. Means that it rejects email if it's not coming from this one, and it reports every day all the email that comes from your domain or use your domain name to your administrator email address, which tells you if somebody is trying to spoof your email address. This is a very good way of securing your email system. The other very important tool is to check if the email is encrypted between your organization and the other organization, receiving organization. And you can do that with checktls.com. Over here, you can test your email address if your email is being used for, if there's any TLS is used between the by your mail server. So rte.ie, let's take it as an example. So you can see that it tells you that the TLS version is used is 1.2, which is quite strong. And what you can do is you can do a very detailed analysis as well, which is test2, and then you just put in your email domain here. You simply run the test. What this tells you, it tells you everything about your domain. If there is any problem with your domain server, your connection problem, anything like that, that it tells you if there's a problem in your domain, any spams or anything, if there's any routing problem, any encryption problem, this is a very good tool that you can use to check for your emails or any concerns that you have. If everything is okay, it means that you have properly implemented your TLS, you have properly implemented your certs, and the system is secure. That's the best way to check your email system. So these are the two things. And for further reading, you can always go to Dmarc. There's an internsociety.org and cloudflare.com. I'm sure a lot of people know Cloudflare. They're a massive company. There is a lot of information about there on how to secure your email address with TLS and how to check different problems or how to implement SPFs and all that. So, and also this is the two items that I discussed, the SPFs and the transmission security, that sits on the perimeter and explains everything to the outside world. Internally, what you can do is you can have a email gateway sitting at the very edge of your network, which do control for incoming spam. This over here avoids people using your email domain to spam outside, from outside. Over here, this is control if somebody's domain is not secure as your and the spam coming in. So it has the rule and rule base which controls how the spam should not enter your company. Similarly, you can block, you can drop virus emails, you can block encrypted emails, you can block all sorts of email depending on your organization and its policy. So you should have one email security policy. So I will quickly go through that. And the next very important thing is the firewall. So what's involved in the firewall? Firewall again sits at the perimeter, at the very end of it. Even this is the edge of your network. The purpose of it is to monitor your traffic, scrutinize traffic, drop any unnecessary traffic, IP traffic, analyze your traffic in case if there's any problem in the traffic, if there's somebody's masquerading attacks into the ordinary traffic. It inspects your SSL, intrusion protection, application control means you can control what applications are allowed to go out and talk, and scan traffic for various DDoS attacks as well. There are 4 types of firewall since this concept. Initially, it started as a packet filtering firewall. It then moved on to the stateful. Packet filtering only inspect any packets that come in and out and look for anomalies. Later on, they develop a stateful filter, which means that it checks for everything in between. It checks the full packet, as in this an FTP packet, a DNS packet, or anything like that. The third one then was the application filter, where you can check for any application, for example, Skype, Zoom, and all these kind of things. The most commonly nowadays used, because with the modernization and more advancement in technology, it's now called next generation firewall, which does all of that, including a lot of other stuff as well, like proxying, reverse DNS, forward DNS, and all that. It can be implemented in many forms. It can be used in cloud-based, it is hardware-based, and it's a software-based as well. You can use it on your own virtual infrastructure. The other thing is there are 2 types of firewall. One is the network-based firewall, which is normally kept at the edge of your network. And then other are a host-based firewall, which is normally on your local computer to secure your local computer from any exceptions. And if I will move on to the VPN. VPN is, I will be brief. I will go through it quickly. VPN is basically providing secure access to end user at home over the internet to your corporate network. It creates an encrypted tunnel between the end user and your corporate office. There are 2 main types of VPNs, which is remote access VPN, which is for end user to talk to the corporate network, and then site-to-site VPN, where if you have site offices and you want to encrypt all the traffic between the 2 sites, that's what it's used for. And the protocols that are most common protocols are IPsec and GRE. IPsec is IP Internet Protocol Security, and GRE is global routing. Can't remember. Anyways, so the main tunneling protocol is point-to-point protocol, which include PPTP and L2P, and then it has further security associations with authentication header and encapsulated security payload. Due to the shortage of time, I won't go into much details in it, but this is how the packet looks like. Perimeter security. Again, this is perimeter is to how the internet is accessed through, your organization. It also has two types. There are two types of proxy: how you manage the internet access and control policies and compliant and provide compliance to the organization policy. Forward proxy is installed into your corporate organization, and any computers or anything, that device that goes out on the internet, it hide behind the forward proxy and then send the information request. That information request is sent to whatever server it goes to. It comes back, it comes into the proxy, and then proxy distributed back to the where the originally came from. The reverse proxy is the other way around. Reverse proxy is normally used for by the big ISP providers like Cloudflare, companies like these, where this is put in front of their internet website servers. So any website, for example, RT and all that, they have a reverse proxy. And nowadays, the concept is very vague now, because firewalls have all these reverse and forward proxies. So what they can do is they can put the reverse proxy in front of the servers, and any information that comes in to the server, if I go onto rt.ie, it goes into that reverse proxy, and then it sends and load balance it to the server which is not used. It checks for all the other stuff, antivirus and the stuff as well. It can also provide caching, compression, switching, redirection. It has a firewall as well, that what kind of traffic is allowed, only HTTP, HTTPS, other traffic, authentication as well. So this is a basic concept behind proxies. And there are two types of proxies. That's how you access internet, which is forward proxy and reverse proxy. Internal security. Again, this is, as I said, the time is real short. But it's just to have a clear strategy, first of all, inside your organization. You have to have a very clear strategy on how you're going to identify all the issues that can face, and then address them accordingly. But the most important is endpoint security. Endpoint is the devices that are used by your end users. They are the most vulnerable piece of hardware, because it's not in an expert hand. Anybody, they can do it, and users can find a way to circumvent the security. So you have to make sure to secure your data. It has to be encrypted. The antivirus should be up to date. They should have a local firewall, and you should have a very strict policy where no application is allowed, so that they can run any kind of scripts or PowerShell scripts or any software which is not allowed by the organizational policy. And always implement a forward proxy server, so that you know what kind of traffic is going through your servers, and then provide reporting based on that. And auditing is very important. With audit vigilance, as I said, have a clear strategy, and then be vigilant about your organization security. You must have auditing of all the organization, and for that you should have a SIEM solution like Splunk or something similar, so that everything that happens on your system, it has to have the logs built in, and it should gather all the logs. That in case of an incident, you should always go back and look at the logs and figure out what caused the problem. Asset management is very important. You should not lose any device, any hardware which is not on your list should not access your network. For that, there is a software called Aruba Networks, which you can use so that it can bring it down, so that it cannot let anybody access anything unless it has been approved by the ICT. A vulnerability scan, my friend Raja Bhai will talk about it, of how it should be done very regularly. And you should constantly keep patching any softwares and Windows constantly every month at least, so that if there is any code execution, remote code execution vulnerabilities or anything like that, they should be able to figure it out, and keep researching on the emerging threats. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening to me. Over to you, Zishan Bhai.
That's very informative. Thanks a lot, Mohammad Afaq. It was really very impressive presentation. Thanks a lot. And as usual, we are receiving quite a lot of comments about this. For example, one of the comments that we have just received from Hamza Afridi is that I recently came across GKIM, SPF, and Dmarc. Most of the companies I previously worked with, as you mentioned, overlooked this. Should be first step when setting up email service I'm going to do, to go do all this for each of my domains. So it's certainly helping people around who are sending in all.
it is very, very important. This is something that everyone overlooks. And if your domain reputation is destroyed, as you know that there are a lot of spammers who are just waiting for any domain to try and send spoof emails. If you overlook SPF, DKIM, or Dmarc, your reputation is at stake. And to be honest, SPF is very, very simple to implement. And I must, if somebody, if who's listening, SPF and DKIM, once you implement it on your gateway, you have to implement, you have to copy your public keys into the DNS. And if you need any further information, please, by all means, ask me in the chat, and I can guide you through how it all gets implemented.
Exactly. So since we are running all of these webinars as a fireside chat series, and we have many more up our sleeves, inshallah, in the future. But we, as you know, that we have our other channels like Facebook, and also our main WhatsApp channel. Afterwards, you can ask any question, and our panelist or anyone else, would be able to share the beautiful insights, just like what Muhammad Afaq just talked about. So, just conscious of the time, so let me just ask you a few questions, Afaq, Muhammad Afaq, if you don't mind. So, the first question that we have received is that is it possible to implement PKI in a Windows environment?
Yes, it is. The most simplest way of, there is a Windows public is called Active Directory Certificate Services. This is the most simplest and easiest way to implement a certificate public key infrastructure in your organization. At the moment, this should be the norm that all the websites, even internally or externally, has to have TLS cert in. And TLS is, any website that you access with HTTPS is basically a PKI cert with the private and public key, which is running in the background. So the short answer is Active Directory Certificate Services is the Microsoft services that you can install with any Windows server, and it's part of it. And you just install it. It's a simple wizard. Obviously, you need to understand the concept before you can implement it properly. And believe me, it can do a lot more than just certificate assigning. It can give you machine certificates as well, user certificates as well, and you can implement the whole allow over always on VPN with it as well. So it can give you exactly like a VPN with at home kind of scenario. So Active Directory Certificate Services is the simplest.
Perfect. Okay. So the second question that we received about this is, can you secure internet websites using PKI?
Yes, like I said, PKI, any TLS cert or any, as even if you go on to Cloudflare or Hosting Ireland, all these people, if you have a web server and you need to secure it, the PKI certs are the most what you call common method of doing it. Again, it's a private and a public key concept. You generate a private key at your server where you're going to be saving it from. You provide the name of it, send it to the certificate authorities like DigiCert or Thwart or Hosting Ireland or Komodo, and they'll generate a public cert for you. Once you have implemented that, your website is secure with TLS and the highest level of encryption.
Okay, perfect. So, I guess your content is generating huge interest. So I've received another question, which is around proxy, that where we would use forward proxy and reverse proxy.
As I mentioned, the forward proxies are used when you want to access internet from your organization to outside. For example, if you want to go on to hotmail.com or rte.com or any other website, the proxy server does is that again, this is the very renowned domain that I talked about. For example, but you're Googling some research material and you come across a site and you're not sure if it's safe or not. So if you have a proxy in your organization, proxy gets real lifetime information from its vendor, which keeps an eye on all the dodgy websites and all the dodgy links. So if you click on any link, it will immediately stop it there. If it is not sure, it will do the sandboxing of the link, and then if it's okay, then it will allow the internet traffic to pass through. So the main reason is the forward proxy is used inside your organization for access internet outside, whereas reverse proxy is the other way around. Reverse proxy are implemented by the organization who want to secure and load balance their websites. If there is an e-commerce website, for example, let's say eBay or Amazon, they have massive amount of reverse proxy servers implemented in their environment. When the traffic comes in, they can look at it and they can decide what to do with that traffic. Again, This reverse proxy, forward proxy, if you ask me what kind of what software is used, it's used almost every firewall, because every firewall provides you forward proxy opportunity as well as reverse proxy. So it's becoming a big wave with the next generation firewall, that all these reverse DNS, all these are provided in one box, which is now called firewall. But there are dedicated, specialized reverse proxy servers as well for e-commerce organization who has millions and millions of clicks in a minute.
Okay, that's perfect. Look, I mean, we are receiving quite a lot of questions, but I think I would just hold off for now, and we can ask the rest of the questions at the end of the seminar webinar. So thanks a lot, Mohammed Afaq, for your valuable input. So before I move on to the next panelist for the next topic, I just would like to reiterate that we are running this webinar on an IPIP platform, and we would request you to send us suggestions, critique us, give us helping hand, provide us your inputs, and please, most importantly, share and spread the word. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to hand over to Ikram, who is going to talk about the web app security.
Yes, this is Ikram. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, so I'm going to talk about web app security. So as we all know that the time is fast approaching where you only need web browser to run apps. So, web browser needs just HTTP requests, which are lightweight, and it includes JavaScript and other frameworks which are used. So if you want to keep in mind security, then you need to do a proactive approach and use best practices out there for development, and try using clean code principles. So if there's any simple error there on your code, then it can cost you millions of dollars of losses. And if your web app is hacked, then it means your whole system is compromised. And if there are any security breaches in your app, it means it harms your company's reputation. And there are many apps there on internet. If they are not implementing the security features correctly, then they can be hacked, even if they are using SSL. Like here, there's example. You have apps like billing, human resource, legacy apps, or databases. Even if you're using firewall or SSL, attacker will go into your website. They can put something in your input box or some other fields. So SSL doesn't, stop attacks that directly target the server or app on client side. So SSL does, uh, if the application uses SSL, this simply means that the other user on the network cannot view or modify the attacker's data in transit. So attacker can control the other side, other end of the tunnel. So attackers can send information to server through tunnel. So because of attacks, many vulnerabilities are there, which are faced by web apps, and there are some advanced ones as well. So I'll go through briefly some of the basics ones which are common. So first one is broken authentication, authorization, and session. So here the client is making request to server, and this connection is established. So what the attacker is doing, they are doing packet sniffing, and they try to hijack the session. Sometimes they hijack the cookie, and they sniff over the insecure connection. So there's a session ID theft. And let's say if you're trying to log into a website, you will get back a session ID. So if your session is hijacked somehow, then attacker can use the same session ID to log in to the website. So they sometimes exploit password reset. They can try brute force the login, and if your password is not secure, then they can discover the credentials as well. Sometimes it happens with public profile people, and it happens when this bad cryptography is used or weak algorithm is used. So common defenses are to minimize the sensitive data storage, protect cookies, encrypt your cookies, and expire sessions quickly, and challenge users on key actions, and allow and encourage strong passwords, and implement login rate limiting and lockouts. So common one example was Citigroup hack. There was easy to detect web flaw on web app. So brute force attack exposes 200K accounts. So the next one is unvalidated redirect and forward and missing function level access control. So here you're going to a website to a link, which is the desired destination. So instead of this, you're going to the malicious redirection because of attacker is giving you this information. So you're going to click here to this website. So instead of this, attacker can give you this website where a malicious code can run. And the missing function level access control is you are logging into a website, you'll get an admin view back, and attacker will go directly to that admin view and return the page because this function level access controls are missing. So it's because UI is showing navigation to unauthorized pages, and it's showing admin sections without proper access level control. So there could be some authorization check missing. So common defense is to use clear authorization model, use roles and membership, proper QA around users and access roles, and always test unprivileged roles, and check your post put calls and async calls, and whitelist your URLs, and use trusted allowed URLs for redirect. And if you are using, it's best to use ID, like, and then resolve the ID through reference map when you are redirecting to another URL, and check the referer in the header when you are passing to another website or URL. So an example was Mian support help desk, where the vulnerability in apps allowed complete takeover of the system. And if and other the government trusted websites are also vulnerable, like someone can tweet like this is the government website and click on this link, and if this link contains something strange, then user think it's a government website, but behind that is phishing or malicious site. So another vulnerability is security misconfiguration and sensitive data exposure. So here the attacker gaining access to insecure resources of website due to misconfiguration. So attacker got exposure of a gateway risk, and user log onto the website or HTTP and doesn't know about encryption, and attacker got onto the network and does sniffing. It's kind of like a man in the middle attack. So they could retrieve user password. Attacker can manipulate data or HTTP. So it happens because there's insufficient use of SSL, login not loaded over HTTP, cookies are not secure, and bad cryptography is used, weak algorithm is used. So common defenses are to turn off features which aren't needed in the configuration. Do you really need directory browsing on the web server? And apply the principle of least privileges and fine tune your app security config, and ensure that it's production ready and not always use default settings. Fine tune that. If you're using package management packages, make sure they are up to date and package management practices are employed, and minimize the sensitive data collection here. So if someone can send phishing email, it should be properly checked, and it should be done according to the security principles. And if you're using HTTPS, make sure it's wrapped around to the whole page. If you are using iframe in the page where you have a simple HTTP page, so make sure everything is wrapped around HTTPS. And if you're using cryptography, make sure you're using strong techniques. And if you're using keys, then you can use like Azure Key Vault or similar cloud tools. Security misconfiguration example was Tunisian government account theft, in which the hacker hacked Gmail, Yahoo, Facebook logins, and social media site Wiki.com, where millions of passwords leaked recently. And if you put this on Google and hit search, you will be able to get lots of information where, because of the security misconfiguration, you will be able to see like lots of logs and stuff where you can publicly see. So that means there's a problem there, that they are showing it publicly. So they have to do the configuration correctly. That it shouldn't be public. So if our attacker got hold of this data, sometimes there could be API keys inside or database passwords. So another common vulnerability is SQL injection. So in this one, the understanding of that is that user is trying SQL injection by using SQL query. So attacker input SQL statement in web form, and website gets the request that is converted into query and run against database. So if you are trying to access a widget on a website, like A1 widget, so this means in the database that select all from widget where ID is A1. So if a user is providing, attacker is providing this text instead of A1, so query would look like this, that or 1 equal 1 that is provided here. And then the two dashes means that everything after this is commented out. So 1 equal 1 is always true, which will run. So it will no longer return one record, but it will return all records. So imagine if you are accessing a user, single user, it will reply you back all the users with all the passwords and emails and everything. So another injection is union operator, where if you are running one query, you can try union operation. It will, and put in another query, it will give you more records. So common defense is to whitelist untrusted data, reject malformed input, strip malicious characters, use parameterized SQL statement, use SPs, fine-tune DB permissions. So one example was Sony hack in 2011. A single injection access everything, and Sony hit badly by a few kids. So another one is cross-site request forgery, CSRF. So understanding of that is that user is trying to log into a website, and then user get backs a token or session ID back. And then attackers send the forged request disguised as a legitimate communication from bank or website. And then user unknowingly forward that request to the website or bank. And that request is executed by bank or website using the previously assigned token that was sent to the user. So attacker knows the HTTP post path and is tricking the user to make the request with the request body. And he knows what the request body is. And then in the request body, you can change the account number or amount, and the auth cookie is automatically sent with the request. So it happens when the web app is not secure enough. So common defenses, I use anti-forgery tokens, like there's a module in .NET that we are currently using. So token add randomness to the request, so which is unique to token and unique to request. So if they don't match together, request is rejected. And always validate the referrer in the header, and you can use custom headers while making the request or employ fraud detection patterns. So last one is cross-site scripting exercise. So in cross-site scripting, it accounts to roughly 80% of all security vulnerabilities documented by Symmetric. It occurs when app takes untrusted data and send it to endpoint without proper validation and escaping. So XSS allows attacker to execute script in the victim's browser. So attacker is injecting a bad script here and getting back the valuable data. Like if I'm going to a website and searching for IPIP, attacker can input like this script, and if it is not properly handled, it will give you back all the cookies. And it can give you back like auth cookies or tokens. That's what attackers need, and this can simply hijack your session, and they can do more stuff, and they can try like XSS injection directly into database. So common defenses are whitelist untrusted data, and check what input you trust. Does it adhere to expected pattern? And some input checking in the backend as well. And you can use tools like Nisos and Nikto to scan apps. One of the example was Sam Kankar's MySpace hack, where the worm spread to friend and that to another one and spread to millions account. And that was like div and with a minified JS code inside. And there's one website there, accesseat.com/archive. If you go there, it will show you list of websites which are vulnerable to XSS. The tick mark says that they have fixed the problem, and this red cross shows that they are still having problems. So there's a big list there with website having this problem. Okay, so the last slide is this one, secure your practices. So imagine if you are using software development lifecycle, or you're using Agile or Scaled Agile or DevOps. So make sure security is injected there in your practices, in your technologies, resources, access areas, and you're using roles and responsibilities. And if you're coding, then you should have code smell and linting process there, and make sure you're doing the automatic and manual peer reviews of code during multiple points during deployment process. So quality should be across the board, like it's everybody's responsibilities, keeping in mind the security aspect. And development pipeline should be introduced and properly configured for environment like dev, integration, staging, and production. And DevOps should be secure as well. Like there should be auditing logs, penetration testing, which will be covered as well in a few minutes. And everything should be secure. So any vulnerability in the DevOps should be scanned, log report should be generated. If you are doing microservices, then make sure you're using security token service, where you can use a UI where you can generate token and assign it to different apps you are using in your organization. And you can set the token validity and lots of other things you can do if you use this token service. So in the end, I would say the continuous monitoring and scanning is vital. Over to you, Zishan bhai.
Thank you very much, Ikram bhai. It was very, very informative. And as usual, we are receiving a lot of questions. But just to engage our other panelists, I think the first question that I would like to ask is from our another panelist, whose name is Raja Irfan. So the question is how to encrypt database without losing performance. If you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, there are a few different ways to do it, but the best and the quickest way would be is to implement the TDE, which is the Transparent Database Encryption, and that is offered in both SQL and MySQL and some variants of Oracle as well. But the only drawback there is that they are only available in the enterprise version of the applications for SQL or MySQL, and they are key-based encryptions, so the database is encrypted on the SQL server itself, and you don't have to solve or hash any of the other fields as well, which dramatically improves the speed of your application. The database interaction with the web server to read and write the transactions, and that is, I think, the best way to go. I know it costs a little bit more, but in the end, if you are valuing the experience of your end users who are using your web application, it will be a worthwhile investment.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So the next question that we have is, which I would like to ask from Afaq. I think it's more relevant to you. Is how many types of firewalls exist? Can you briefly describe them?
Uh, yeah, it really depends. Like I said, there are four types of firewalls since the concept of firewall emerged in 90s or 80s. Firewalls, which inspect packets. It looks at the packets, look for anomalies, and allow or block. Very simple firewalls. Then came the application firewalls. Sorry, the stateful firewalls, which means it looks at the whole packet, not just it looks at the whole bunch of packets, not just one individual packet. That Then came the application firewalls, and the one that are now used and been used for the last couple of years is the next generation firewalls. These are you. This is the firewall that you'll find almost in every home as a broadband router. That's a firewall in itself as well. It can do a lot of stuff. It can do proxy for you. It can do reverse DNS for you. Then there are and then the other type can be, like I said, categorized as a network-based firewall or a host-based firewall. Host-based firewalls, the firewalls that are on your computer, which blocks or allow traffic in or out of your laptop, for example. Whereas network firewall are at the edge of the firewall, at the edge of your organization, which secures your entire organization from the all different types of things. And it basically rule-based firewall, which allows only certain traffic to pass through based on your policies and your exemptions. So it depends on how you look at it. There could be packet filter type firewalls, or they're network-based, host-based, but they're all interrelated.
Okay, that's great. And the other question that we have received is, how do you implement encryption in a web app? So I think it's more suited to Ikram Bhai and yourself.
Yeah. So I'll share my screen and explain how we implement it. Can you see my screen?
Just one moment.
So, so in e-commerce system where I worked on, customer normally put items in cart and cut across to checkout with shipping, billing details, and do payments. So this is just a request, a postman request locally. So here I'm creating a checkout. Here normally we use in header the authorization all encrypted, and when the pre-order is created, it will give us back a URL which is hashed. So behind that is yeah. So behind that is all the billing, shipping details, if it is there, and the whole checkout experience is behind this. So we use MD5 encryption. So let's say it's this page, this checkout comes up. So we need to check what we are using in terms of cookies. So there's no cookie there which saves data. So when we have this option there that save address information for next time. So let's say if I'm putting my details here and putting in address. Yeah, and that's the GDPR thing. So I go here, come back, and then I close this and create another checkout. And then I go back to the browser. As the cookie is not generated, so I'll just fill it in. Okay, let it load. So before coming to checkout, we get JSON payload with cart information, user detail, and reply back encrypted URL and token in it. And we use Md5 encryption algorithm on data by Microsoft security.cryptography package. And same package is used when we decrypt the secrets. So when we are saving data in cookie, we are encrypting the data and saving it when it is returning to user. And we show the user detail already filled out from cookie. So there's some problem here. So I'll close this and create the pre-order again. And when I go back, it filled out my details already there, but in the body, as we can see, that there's no billing and shipping details. So it's all coming from cookie, which is, and the cookie is here, user detail cookie. So that's the information which is hashed. So everything is hashed using MD5 encryption. So user don't have to fill out detail if he is a returning user. So like I'm coming back to the website again to buy something like after a month. So all the details are filled out through cookie and I just go to payment and complete my payment. So that's how we have implemented the encryption in cookie and on the pre-order. Over to you.
Okay, that's a very comprehensive answer. Thank you very much. We have received some more questions, but I will proceed to our next topic, and then we will ask those questions towards the end in our live Q&A session. So the next topic that will be presented by Raja. So over to you, Raja.
Hi guys, thank you for staying tuned thus far. My name is Radha, and I'll walk you through a couple of things today, which will be the penetration testing of networks and web applications, and then vulnerability assessment of networks and web applications. There is one thing which people generally confuse, is that the penetration testing is the same or similar to the vulnerability assessment, while they are completely two different things, but they are similar enough. So hopefully I will be able to distinguish these two for you as well. So to start off first with is, what is penetration testing? So the penetration testing is a process or an authorized stimulation of a cyber attack on a computer, a network, or a web application to find out or evaluate the security of the network, of the system, or the web application. It has to be done by a third party. Generally, people do internal penetration testing as well. But the whole point of penetration testing is that you try to get into the application or into the network or into the computer as an outsider who has no information or very limited information into getting into somebody's system or somebody's website to basically hack into or break into and get valuable information or make modification to certain things. The penetration testing phase, these and the processes are to plan, then to discover, then to attack, and then to report. So in planning, what is that you kind of agree on an approach as to what kind of penetration testing you're going to do. The discovery is the kind of information you need are given based on the type of penetration testing you're going to do. I'll discuss that a little later as well. And then the attack phase is where you actually carry out the attack, and then the reporting is where you find any of the vulnerabilities in the security, where you list them out, and then if possible you list out the corrective actions for those, are some things what you can do to decrease the exposure of your system to attackers, and then report it back to the people who own or run that website or network. Now the second one is, what is vulnerability assessment? So the vulnerability assessment is generally done internally by people who work in your IT department, or if your company has outsourced your IT responsibilities to a third company, is to they identify, then they analyze, rank, and close any of the vulnerabilities they identify during the entire process. So the main thing is to scan your network or scan your web application, then identify your vulnerabilities, then analyze them to see whether they actually genuinely exist or not, and if they do, what impact they have on the security and overall performance. If you were to change them on your application and on your network, then you do your risk assessment, whether you accept that risk and leave it be, or you try to do something so that if it's a medium or a high level risk, you bring it down to low, so where it is still exists but it's not as exposed as it was before. And the remediation part is where you actually carry out your remediation tasks to decrease or close off any of the vulnerabilities you have identified. And then you go back to your scanning part again, and then just cycle keeps on going. So this is the difference between penetration testing and vulnerability assessment, is that vulnerability assessment is an ongoing task which has to be performed by mainly internal IT. You can outsource it as well, but it's not a accepted assurance from other people or other companies who like to do business with you. But if you do a penetration testing, then you can use the penetration test report and an executive summary to say, okay, your application or network was pen tested by so and so or this company, and that can be used to provide some level of comfort to the other companies to have interaction of business with your company. Now, in terms of types of penetration testing, there are three types: the black box, white box, and gray box. Black box, where there is absolutely no information given to people, the pen testers, and they are asked to carry out a pen test, just like, okay, somebody give me their website, say abc.com, and then there's, okay, there you go, and we want you to carry out a black box pen testing. So then you're only limited to get into that website, or similarly if they're a network, to find any loopholes and try to get into them. And if you don't, fair enough. And if you do, you tell them these are the problems you have in your network, you need to fix them, and then you move on. The most commonly used one is white box. The reason it's most commonly used is that it covers your exposure from internal and external points of view, both sides. In that way, the information is given to the pen testers as to sometimes login credentials, IP addresses, network diagrams, the flow of data, and it helps the speed of the penetration test. But not only it helps the speed, but also it covers your application or your network from external threats as well as the internal threats. Because when you have credentials to log into the application or access the network, then you are physically there, and then you can try to exploit it. As if you have an inside attacker, let's say all your employees are not happy, or there are a few people who like to mess around. So to see if there is any escalation or requirement where you have a privilege escalation. Say you have different groups in Active Directory, but you think, okay, this group has no access to install software on the system, but they actually do. Or similarly, if you have a web application where certain people can see certain things, have access to the orders, or if you are a hospital website or some clinic, the reception people don't have access to certain medical records and those kind of things. So it covers everything. So generically, or statistically looking at, based on my experience, majority would go with the white box. And then the gray box is give or take mix of both, where there is some information given to the pen testers and majority is not given, or the other way around. But it's a mix of both, and then everyone prefers to do their own. But if you give somebody a choice, 9 out of 10 times they'll pick the white box. Now, there are a good few methodologies and standards for penetration testing. Now, these are the 5 most commonly used ones I have picked. There are a few more, but they are there. The first one is open source security testing methodology and manual. It more relates to network penetration testing than web apps, but they all kind of go hand in hand. You can use the same techniques to analyze your website as well and do basic penetration testing for your website. The second one is the OWASP, which is the Open Web Application Security Project, which, as the name states, it is for web applications only. Now, OWASP is a online community. I'll talk about it in next slide. The next one is Nist, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. Then it's PTIS, which is penetration testing methodologies and standards. And then the last one is the ISAF, which is the Information System Security Assessment Framework. So now here we look at them in a little bit of more detail. I'm not going to go into extensive detail, just to give you an overview of what they are and how they differ from each other. So as I said before, OSS-TMM is mainly focusing on the network penetration testing, how to do the vulnerability assessment for network, how to incorporate security when you're deploying or creating your network, and how to identify any of the vulnerabilities you have in your network. The OWASP is an online community which provides good few articles and information and some methodologies, documentations, and tools to carry out your penetration testing, and then how to secure your application. So basically, they guide you how to secure your application and securely develop your application. But within those guidelines, it is also there that how to check your application using certain tools and for certain things to make sure that your application is secure. So this is one of the most commonly used penetration test which is carried out for any web application. Then Nist is the one which differs from the first two, is that it focuses solely to the procedures of the organization where you're going to do the penetration testing for. So means that if you will be doing penetration testing for a bank, it'll be different to a hospital, to a hotel website, to a normal booking site or a travel agent. So it differs from the goal of or the objective or the business of the organization too. And this is mainly used by most of the American companies are required to comply with the recommendations of Nist and should have a pen test done for their applications based on Nist. Then the PTIS, it is also a similar to Nist but slightly different, that it gives you a structural approach for penetration testing where it requires the penetration testers to be familiar with day-to-day businesses and operations of the organization so that they know how exactly their network or their web application will be used by end users and focus on trying to exploit any of the vulnerabilities within that area. The ISAF is very similar to PTIS, but it gives you their direction is to keep in contacts of the organization in mind as well, alongside with the familiarization with the processes and the business of the organization where you are going to do. And it is similar to the way Nist is, that if it's for bank, you will have different rule to do penetration testing, and if it was a hospital, it'll be different, and if it's with a travel agency, it'll be different, or if it's a card processing company only, then it'll be different. So for every different kind of business, they have different set of rules. Now, if we look at different our most commonly used penetration testing tools for web applications, we have CyberChief, we have Grabber, Vega, Detectify, BBQ, SQL, SQL Map, Byron, Wasp, WAF, then Security for Everyone, Qualys, and Tenable. That's Nessus, but they brand it as Tenable for their web applications. Now, the CyberChief mainly is for cloud-based applications like Azure and AWS ones, and it is recognized or recommended or authorized, whatever you want to say, it is by the Australian government as the only acceptable certification for their web applications. So if you are in lower end of the world, Australia, New Zealand, then if you have a cyber chief certification, it'll be more than enough for you to run your website. Similarly, Qualys and Security for Everyone, they provide some free tools as well and online ones to carry out basic penetration testing and scanning of your websites to give you an overview of where your application stands in terms of security. Just go to qualys.com or securityforeveryone.com and make use of their free tools and tests what are there. Then in terms of penetration testing tools for network and Wi-Fi, there are plenty of them, but we can't leave out Nmap, the legendary Wireshark, Nessus, the burp site, then Kali, Linux, Metasploit, and if you want to analyze the security of your Wi-Fi, then you're looking at Canonabel, Aircrack, and if you're using Mac OS and you want to analyze the Wi-Fi security from your Mac system onto your router, then you're using Kismac. And then John the Ripper says the name as it is that it's been one of the oldest and most renowned password security and cracking software out there. And then Gfi Land Guard, I put it in here because it mainly is a what you call an assessment software, but it gives you a really deep insight of your network, which some others would miss. Metasploit and Nessus are equally good. They are used for assessment, but they are also used in penetration testing as well, because you can enable deep scanning, which can take quite a long time over a sizable network, but it gives you every single thing from missing patches to open ports to your most frequently attacked ports internally and externally and all of that. So these are basically the things what are commonly used. And hopefully I've given you some information in here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask now or later on for the session. And it's back to you, Ishan.
Thank you very much, Raja Irfan. It was very useful information. And again, we have been receiving quite a lot of comments. And just to remind you guys that we are live on YouTube and also on Facebook. And some of the questions had been answered by our panelists directly on Facebook. So just to ask you a very quick question, because I'm just conscious of time that we are running a bit over. So in terms of the standard, which standard of penetration testing is more commonly used, Raja?
Well, it depends what part of the world you are. So if you are, say, for example, doing web application penetration testing, you have to keep the recommendations of OWSP in mind. And then if you are in the US, you'll obviously try to incorporate Nist. But if you are doing network penetration testing, it's the same. Again, you will be incorporating Nist in that. But if you are not there, then similarly, depending on the requirement, what you want to have just a penetration test done for yourself to have peace of mind, or you want to use it as kind of a assurance to third parties that, okay, your application was penetration tested. But in general, it's the OWSP for which is used for penetration testing, and then the OWSP for network for web applications, and then OSS TMM for the network penetration testing.
Great. And one of the other questions which is really important is that how often one should perform penetration testing?
Well, it is entirely dependent on your information security requirements and your policies. The recommendation is that you should carry out it at least once a year for your internal network. And if you have a web application where you process any kind of PCI information, which is the if you take payments, especially all the e-commerce ones, they should be carrying it out at least once in 6 months. But if you have a normal website, like say, for example, a file sharing site or some socially interactive site, then once per annum is more than enough. But that's the minimum. You cannot leave it longer than that.
Okay, there was one question that just came from Navid Alam, which you can see here. Can we do penetration testing for Linux and cloud-based? If yes, what tools we can use?
So, well, for Linux, you can do penetration testing as well, and then for cloud-based, there are different tools, as I mentioned, a couple of softwares there in my presentation, and one of the commonly used one for cloud-based ones is the CyberChief. And in terms of Linux, you can use Kali as well, and there are a couple of other softwares which you can use, but they're not commonly used that way. So I don't know if people will be familiar with those or not, but Kali definitely can be used to do the penetration testing on any of the operating systems.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Raja. We have other questions, and I will try to highlight it here very quickly, but just I'm really conscious of the time. We have one last topic, and then we will take the live Q&A, and where I'll be showing some of the comments, and also we'll be asking the other live questions that are coming from our audience. So please stay tuned with us. This is the last topic that we're going to talk about, and it will be over to our final panelist. His name is Adnan Ahmed, and he will be talking about security awareness. So over to you, Adnan.
Good afternoon, all. My topic is important for IT professional as well as non-IT professional. Everyone should be aware of these topics that I'm going to talk about. Every common person should be aware of, because everyone is using an email address. So my first topic is about phishing. So what exactly is a phishing? When you receive an email, it's kind of an email type attack. You receive an email, but the bad guy is trying to first to show you that it's something for you to click, but it's not really something that you should do it. For example, there could be a malicious link and trying to hack your system. The most common thing is there may be a link in an email. You try to click that link and it downloads the payloads that try to infect your computer. So what you need to do in these phishing emails to look into the signs of this phishing. So the first common thing is the generic salutation that they normally use it, like dear customer or a hi or something. They won't mention your name because they are going to spam this to number of thousands of users. Look for the spelling mistakes normally in these emails, and if it is if you're receiving an email and they're asking you to share highly sensitive information, never ever share. Your bank will never ask you to share sensitive information, so be careful what information you're sharing it. 94%, as I mentioned, of phishing attacks are going to be happening via email, and during COVID-19 this is getting even bigger issue. So you may be expecting like a grant from the government and you're receiving an email, but the bad guys will be using the same concept. So be careful when you're receiving an email. If it is from untrusted source, don't click it. If in the email they are giving you an offer, you have received $1 million lotto, you haven't received it. So make sure you have to make sure that you only open the email coming from the trusted source. So I'm going to give you a few examples of how do you pick a phishing email. So this is one of the phishing example. So an email is received and saying that it's Office 365 email. And what I'm doing here is highlighting how are you going to pick up that this is a phishing email. So this is very common email sent to on your corporate accounts if you're working, that is saying that look at the from email address. So in the from email address is quite common. Here is called long.com.au. It's not coming from Microsoft. Even the name is stack Microsoft. It's very easy for you to disguise, especially if you're accessing this email on your mobile phone. It normally shows just the display name. So if you're not really sure about any email, I would recommend you to open that email on your laptop rather than on your mobile phone. They normally look for the timings as well. So for example, they may try to send you an email late evening, 10 p.m. When you're watching telly, and then they trick you, because at that time you're not really paying too much attention. The another sign of this I'm showing you here is a typo or a spelling mistake, or this is R is capital here. So you're looking for the grammar If it is coming from Microsoft, you don't really expect these things. So you can see mailbox here, just an example. And this is a link, which is they are tempting you to click that link. So you have to be careful about what you click. So this is just an example. You may have seen a UPS delivery. It's very common that you have received a delivery from Amazon. But if you're not expecting a delivery, don't click those links. If I go to the next slide, second. So the second topic I'm going to cover is around smishing. So smishing, as the name suggests, it is you're going to receive the same phishing thing, but via SMS. It's called SMS via phishing via SMS. So what cyber attacks normally do, they use a misleading text to you and send this misleading text to your mobile phone, tricking you to respond to that email. These days there is very common smishing attack happening via banks. So you may have received an email from AIB that your account is compromised. Can you click this link to make sure that you provide your identity? This is getting very common, and there was a recent article a few weeks ago whereby AIB or Bank of Ireland was talking about that every one of the 5 customer is receiving an smishing attack to their customers. Another sign is if you don't have an account for AIB Bank, for example, and you're receiving an SMS, definitely it's a smishing. So never ever click a link. And I'm going to give you an example in the next slide of how do you pick up this. So for example, the government agencies never typically communicate you through the SMS, especially asking you to provide any sensitive information. And also you may notice sometimes you receive an SMS and asking you to stop if you don't want to receive it. Don't ever click that. Don't ever even respond to that SMS as well. So make sure you look for the different signs. Basic concept, make sure if there is a typo issue, there is the link. So for example, an email is from a bank, but the link that they have provided is not from the bank. So I would highly recommend you to make sure, pay extra attention when you're receiving a smishing one. Don't try to click it if you're not really sure it's coming from the authorized source. So this is the 2 examples. This is a real example. I have received those 2 SMS messages in the last 2 to 4 weeks. So first one is I received an SMS from a lady called Andrea. When I tried to find out the phone number, there was no phone number attached to it. So this is not a good sign. And somehow this lady, or this is a smishing attack, they know my name. And what they are saying, you're invited to become one of the 8 testers, make up to 1,200 per day. So this is like, it's an offer too good to be true. And then look at the URL, ftlva.com. So I shouldn't be clicking that SMS. So as soon as I picked it, this is a phishing attack. When you click it, they may be taking to a page whereby they'll ask you to enter your bank account detail, your personal information detail. The second example I have is, again, is a real SMS that I have received it. And this is from Bank of Ireland. So it's not the real Bank of Ireland. The hackers have used Bank of Ireland as a name. And then again, they're giving you a malicious link to click to. So be careful when you're trying to, when you're receiving an SMS messages. Another danger which I'm seeing these days is you may be receiving, for example, all of the banks are now using multi-factor authentication, whereby if you're making a transaction through your credit card, if you have an account in Bank of Ireland, you receive a text message with the PIN number. But when you receive a smishing, it's going to go inside the same Bank of Ireland SMS thread. So it doesn't mean that if SMS is coming from real Bank of Ireland or militia or the hacker, you have to pay attention every SMS that you're receiving from even trusted sources. The third concept I'm going to talk about is phishing. The ultimate goal of phishing, smishing, or wishing is the same: is to try to gain access to your personal data, try to gain access to your email address, hack your account for their personal gain. So phishing is around doing the same thing via voice. So an attack by phone, which can appear to be calling from a familiar area code organization. So you may receive a phone call and the person is saying, I'm calling from revenue, or I'm calling from social welfare or bank, and asking you to provide some sensitive information. So first thing is, don't trust the caller ID. It's very easy to hack the phone number. Okay, so it's not like if it's coming from a Dublin number, it's going to be 100% accurate. So you have to be very careful. And if the caller is asking you to provide, for example, your mother's maiden name or any other information, always be careful of providing any sensitive information, because no bank or any other government organization will ever ask you to provide any sensitive information. If you're not sure who the person is, hang up, don't go into the detail, and never give your personal information. Social networks, what do you really share? In this topic, this is, we face it on day-to-day basis. So we have a Facebook account, LinkedIn account, and all similar social media accounts. And we start sharing our profile. The easiest way to normally share our profile is you go to a page and start liking that page.
It makes sense to them. So the benefit of it is it provides confidentiality. It means that it was not read. It was not read or not used during the course of its transmission.
And then in the social network, you look for the information that you are sharing it on the social platform. So you have to be very careful. Don't go off and start liking any page, because when you like a page on Facebook, you're actually giving consent to that particular owner of the page to receive the basic information about you. So if you know basic information about you, your friends, your circles, where do you work, you're giving your personal information for free. So I'm going to play a video just to give you how easy is when you like a page, how easy it is to give your information. You never thought about it. So in this video, this is done by a UK government, and they're talking about how private is really your personal information. So I'm going to play that video.
If you like our Facebook page, we give you a free battery and a free pastry. We have a new line today, yes. We have a new line today. Hi there, can I help? Okay, Chloe, are you ready for information on name yet? Yes, Mother's maiden name is Elaine Quinn. Carly, this is Nico. Can we get notes to the score? What's the name? Nicola. His date of birth, 7th May. She lives at 38A. Just pick up a second. 2 children, aged 4 and 6. Previous address. Yeah, got it. Damien, age 26, a fitness instructor. Really nice to UCL. After doing Self-Defense College, assistant psychologist in criminal history. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, we know everything about you, Martin. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Anna from Russia.
So as you can see in this example, it's very easy for anyone to hack your information. Zishan, can I move forward for the next one, or do you have any question from the?
Yeah, I think there are. First of all, thanks a lot for this valuable information, Adnan. I have one question, which is if someone is a victim of phishing, smishing, wishing, what is the advice that you suggest to come out of this situation?
If someone is a victim of smishing, phishing, to make sure that this is the next topic I have, which is around password security, you need to make sure you change your password. One of the example I'll give you is very common for banks and other organizations to ask you about your mother's maiden name. So bank is a reputable organization, or revenue, or social welfare. These are government agencies, but you shouldn't be using the same mother's maiden name when you are creating an account on your social media, because if you give your mother's maiden name, it's being used by banks and other organizations to authorize you. So make sure you change your password. In the next slide, I'm going to talk about how do you know if you are being a victim of this. So I think I would highly suggest you to change your password and also use multi-factor authentication to make sure the account is protected. And also never ever use or provide too much personal information on social media. So if you have a Facebook account, you don't really need to specify that someone is your cousin or friend. Where do you work? So you have to keep the information as minimum as possible on social media.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Adnan. So over to you for your next topic, which is password.
Okay. So my next topic is around password security. Is also very important for everyone to understand, because we sometimes use the same password in number of social media sites. So I've just given a link called Haven't Been Pawned. You just click that link and try and enter your personal email address or corporate email address and see if the credentials or the email address that you're using is already part of one of the breach. So you can validate yourself, and if you find out that you are already part of one of the breach, look into the detail of what type of breach. If the breach is only about your name and mobile number is hacked, most people already, like, this is not really personal information, it's very basic information. The GDPR is still a basic personal information, but it's not very difficult to find someone's phone name or email address or also your phone number. But if your additional information like mother's maiden name and other information is compromised, you have to be more careful. Change your password as well. So this is a quick test. You guys can just type in the link and try and find out if your account is compromised. If it is compromised, make sure you change your password and also use multi-factor authentication. How to store your password? One of the common problem that we all face is I may have account for a number of mail accounts, Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo, and also I have YouTube account, Facebook account, LinkedIn, and I have my corporate accounts as well. So how do I remember all these passwords? So people do different things. They start writing all these in like an Excel file. That's not really good today. What happens if that Excel file is hacked? So what I'm going to suggest here is, first thing, never ever share your password in multiple sites. Never ever write down your password in a book or notepad. Store your password in an unencrypted way. So never save your password like an Excel file in an unencrypted way. If the Excel file is hacked, all of your passwords are actually hacked. It will be compromised. Then another area is never ever share your corporate password with your social account or vice versa. The main, this is very common attack whereby if you use the same password on your corporate account and your Facebook, if your Facebook account is compromised, there is a more likelihood of your corporate social accounts is compromised because hackers are looking to steal the information. And the hackers will try to use the same account credentials against your corporate account. And it's not really difficult to find out where you work, what's your email address. I just need to go to, if I know your name, I can go to LinkedIn, find your name. I can automatically create your email address and I can attack on your corporate account as well. So never ever do this. So how do I remember all these 15, 20 passwords? That's a challenge for every one of us. So I would recommend to use a password manager. Then there are a number of tools available. According to TechRadar 2020, there are 5 of these password managers that I would recommend. LastPass, KeePass, Dashlane, Keeper Password Manager, RoboForm. There are a number of other ones that are also available, but I've just given you a list of 5 of them. So pick any one of those and use it. So I'm going to give you a quick demo of LastPass. That's how I use it for corporate and as well as for personal. So I'm going to switch to a page. So if you're using LastPass, the best way I'm going to say it has a plugin available for Chrome, Edge, or Internet Explorer, any other browser you're using. So I've installed my plugin here. So I can search for any credentials here on the right side. And I also can generate a password. So I don't have to remember. I can just copy paste the password in any account. And also I can go to security dashboard, which I have already opened here. And then I can save all these different passwords. And believe me, I don't remember all these passwords. I don't even have to remember. You can search for LinkedIn and you can enter the password. The another benefit, which is really key, if I say, for example, my LinkedIn password here, if I launch it, it will automatically open LinkedIn for me. so I don't have to remember it. There is a mobile app from LastPass as well, so you can search for mail accounts passwords on your mobile phone, on your fingertips, so you keep all the accounts credentials in one. But I will highly recommend when you use any password manager to use multi-factor authentication. Why it is very important? Because what is happening here in LastPass, any other password manager, you're keeping all passwords in one system, which is in my case LastPass. What happens if my LastPass credentials are compromised? Means that all of my social media accounts, social profiles will be compromised. So I need to make sure that I use multi-factor authentication. For those of you who don't know what is multi-factor authentication, it means that it is a second factor of authentication when you need to access a system. For example, if I need to access LastPass here, I enter my email address, my password, and then system will send me either a SMS. It depends on the type of multi-factor authentication I'm using. Either an SMS, it could be a voice call, or it could be an app. So in my case, I use Authenticator app. I have to authenticate myself. So think about a scenario. If a hacker is going to gain access to my LastPass password, hacker can't gain access to my second factor authentication, which is can't receive a SMS, voice call, or authenticate via Authenticator app. So just would like to let you know that I think you should definitely look into any password manager type application. And if you do use it, always use second factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. So I've given you a quick demo and just quickly high level update you what the main benefits. It allows you to generate a complex password. There is a mobile app available. You can use biometric as well. And it will also highlight you if you are using a weak password. There is a free account available. You can buy a professional account for family, so you can share among your family. And there is a plugin available for Chrome, Edge, and all other browsers as well. Over to you, Zishan.
Thank you very much. So with this, we have just ended our all of our topics. So, but one question related to this one is how do I ensure that my password is secure, Adnan?
First thing, there are basic concepts about the passwords to make sure you are using alphanumeric characters, minimum 14 to 16 characters long rather than 2, 4, 6. Don't use the generic ones like 11123, these kind of password or password 123. You can use have I been pwned as well, that your credentials are not already being compromised. So try to use a complex password. And if your account is compromised, the best example I would say is to look into have I been pwned. Another important thing I would suggest, if you are creating an account for e-commerce platform, for example, Amazon, I would highly recommend to create a username and password plus multi-factor authentication, because one day your password is going to be compromised, no matter how complex that password is. So the best way, and there may not be any fault from your side. So I would highly recommend, if you are keeping your credit card details in Amazon, my suggestion would be to go with multi-factor authentication. So even if the hackers has access to your password, can't really do any damage.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much. So with this, we are moving on to our live Q&A session. So so very quickly, we are just conscious of time. So there are like quite a lot of questions, but I'll just pick the one that are relevant. So first question that I would ask is from Raja, is about security carrier. What should the person do? What technical tech stack or the certification that he needs for the security carrier? Raja?
Hi. Yeah, well, for security, like there are 3-4 different kinds of fields within the information security as well. So it's entirely dependent whether you want to go at the start, in the middle, or at the end. But I would recommend if you can look at the certifications or something along the lines of, say, software security engineer, penetration tester, information security analyst, cybersecurity architect. And then now with the Azure and Amazon Web Services getting a lot more commonly used, there is a cloud security architect certification available there as well. Similarly, Azure and AWS, they do have their own certifications for their security architects. Say, for example, AWS certified security architect, and then similarly Azure certified security architect, or something along the same lines. So it's entirely dependent on where you want to go. But if you want to be able to do both cloud and the normal ones, the way I would say the traditional and the conventional websites and network, then I would highly recommend to look into cybersecurity architect and then software security engineer or architect certifications. And then if you really want to get into it, then see at the certified ethical hacker, which will give you a command over all of the security domains.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much for the comprehensive answer, Raja. So there was one more topic that we promised our viewers that we will touch upon, but there's not too much time. So we'll just ask a couple of questions around it, which is about GDPR, which is really a hot topic these days. What is GDPR and why it is important? Raja, if I can ask you.
Sorry, it's really breaking. Can you repeat the question, please?
So the question is, what is GDPR and why it is important? If you can briefly describe it, please.
Well, GDPR is a regulation basically for how the organizations, whether they are public or private, small or big, use somebody's personal information, irrespective of it's a street down the corner from where you buy your milk and bread, or a big corporate like Google. So it's a set of guidelines and requirements what everyone has to comply by. If you look at it when it came out back in 2018, there was a big worry about it. And then if you look at it, how it is modeled, it's basically, I would say, 90% of the German information law, which was already there, and they just improved on it to push it across Europe. And I think it's a really good initiative. It empowers everyone how to control their information, that they are clearly told when their information is collected from them, why it is collected, how it will be processed, where it will be stored, for how long it will be stored. And if there is any mistakes in them, they can be corrected. People can request information from any company or organization as to what information is held about them, including any of the decision making. Then people can restrict how the information is processed or not processed, which relates to them. And then in some cases, they can actually even request that their information is deleted from that company's systems altogether, as they never existed on their system. So it's a really vast thing to talk about in a few minutes, but that's the general overview.
Yeah, inshallah. I mean, we'll take care about this topic maybe next time. But there's another question which I would like to ask Adnan from is, with the latest GDPR regulation, what are the challenges the organizations are facing? If you can briefly describe it.
Yeah, I think the most common challenge that organizations are facing is to make sure that they review the application, the type of information that application is going to save. So if you're working on e-commerce based application, you have to do more due diligence. One of the common example is if an application is saving more than the basic information, you may have to do data protection impact assessment. It's a legal requirement. And there are two even levels of, it's called DPI, data protection assessment. You may have to do 2 levels of impact assessment as well. You also have to see if they are storing data and they are not subcontracting the data. It's very common with other organizations. So for example, you may have, you are buying a product from an online website, and or you are going to host an application to third party, but they are hosting to Amazon or AWS. Do they have data processor agreement with the Azure or Amazon as well? So you need to first sign a data processor agreement, DPA, and also you need to check if the company that you're buying have a subcontracting agreement as well. So you need to do due diligence on also the location where they're hosting. If the information is hosted within EU, the laws are a little bit different. The protection is different. If it is saved outside EU, you have to look into the contractual agreements and how your data will be protected.
Okay, that's great. And the another question, Adnan, if you can elaborate on, is what are the steps involved in auditing an application to assess its compliance with GDPR?
Okay, so you need to look for the reputation of the company. You need to see where they are hosting the data, like EU or non-EU, for example. Where they are hosting, is it public cloud or private cloud? How they are going to save the data. You need to look for their certification. Do they have ISO 27001 certification, Nist certification, CIS 20 certification, to give you the level of comfort? Who has access to this data? Do they do employee vetting? Who has access to this data within the company? Once those basic things are done, then you look for next step, which is what type of information will be saved. If the information is basic, you may not have to go through DPIA, but if information is highly sensitive, you may have to get your legal involved, legal department. I have to do the data protection impact assessment. If it is highly sensitive information, you may need to go to data protection office. For example, in Ireland, you have to go to DPO in Ireland to get the special approval. So there are a number of steps. You have to think about what the data is being saved, where it is being saved. Is it on-prem? Is it in the cloud? If it's in the cloud, is it in EU, outside EU? So these are the basic steps that you need to see and talk to the vendor who is offering you that service.
Okay, that's perfect. So I'll just take like 1 or 2 questions from Facebook. So Anwar Malik asked, I don't know if this was answered. I have 15 customers on Cloudflare and I paid $20 per month per client, bringing 5 more customers. Is there any alternative? So maybe Afaq, Mohammed Afaq, if you can try to answer this one, or somebody else, anyone on the floor?
I'm not sure if Anwar is talking about the web hosting.
Yes, I think this Cloudflare is probably web hosting.
I can take the this question. If you are looking to do the same thing with Azure, it's called Azure Web App. And in Azure Web App, you can buy a premium tier. I think it's $120 to $130 per month, but it will give you 20 deployment slots, which means that you can technically host 20 websites by paying €120. And you can scale out, scale up, similar to Cloudflare. So you can do the maths, which one is cheaper.
Okay, perfect. And there was another question asked by Naved, but I think this had been answered by Ikram Niazi, our panelist, on the Facebook, so that's okay. We can move on to another one. Can we do penetration for Linux and cloud-based? I think this was also answered by that. It was like Kali Linux.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, okay. So let me just move on to one more question. Is there any website where we can paste email to find out if that email is real or phishing, Adnan?
No, there is no real website where you can go and find out if your email is phishing or not. You have to do your due diligence yourself. Look for the from email address. Pay attention to reply all. Normally in these fake email or phishing emails, the reply to could be your another Gmail account. Look for the salutation, as I mentioned. Look for the footer as well. Look for the phone numbers that they have mentioned. If it is coming from United Nations, they may have used another phone number. So look for the signs. And if they're asking you to click a link to go somewhere, and if you're not feeling comfortable, don't click that and just delete that email. But there is no website that I'm aware of.
Okay, perfect. And so the last question was a very basic question. What if these password managers get hacked? I think you did mention that about multi-factor authentication.
Yes. So according to Microsoft research, if you use multi-factor authentication, your account is 99% secure. There's no 100% guarantee, but your account will be 99% secure with multi-factor authentication. I would never suggest you to use password manager without multi-factor authentication, because you're keeping all eggs in one basket. And what happens if that basket is stolen?
Perfect.
So always use multi-factor authentication along with password manager.
That's great. So so we are now ending at the very end of our webinar. So just to reiterate that, IPIP is an open access platform for Irish Pakistani ICT professionals. If you're an Irish Pakistani IT professional and wish to support this idea, please get in touch with us. Do join us, share your ideas, help us to refine these ideas, join us to practically deliver those aims and objectives. And finally, IPIP, an open access platform for Irish Pakistani. It's envisaged by ICT professionals, organized by ICT professionals, and supported and managed by ICT professionals. With this, thank you very much for attending this. And I would like to give a big thanks to all of our panelists for taking out their valuable time to present this topic. With this, Thank you very much, and Allah Hafiz.
Allah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you,
you.
guys. Have a good weekend. Thanks.